your position is keep Pascal, move Fred. Gary's probably a keeper for you too. You're a little bit confused as to why Gary is always mentioned so often, and that OG probably shouldn't go anywhere. Did I have that right?
Yeah, I mean, you did. I mean, the Gary thing amuses me, man, because like if Gary is traded, he's being traded for the fault that he's played well, which which doesn't make any sense to me, especially because his age is aligned with kind of the contention window or the time window for Scotty Barnes, and that's one of the reasons that OG is in there as well. Because OG, I think we should just level set our expectations of the guy. No matter what kind of team you are building,
Hmm.
you're always going to have a need for a good defensive wing, a decent 3-point shooter, a hard worker, guy who can play the passing lanes, does all the things that OG does, and he's tied to a reasonable contract and all that good stuff. I just don't see, even if you're, and I don't think we're talking about, when we say tank, I think we should qualify that. I don't think we're talking about going into a multi-year, like Philadelphia 76ers type situation. We're talking about like maybe tanking the rest of the year. I don't know what you feel about that. But no matter what you do, I just feel that guys like Gary and OG at their age and at their skill level is something you would need. And unless you're getting something like which is clearly better than those two in return,
Hmm.
I don't see a sense in moving those two.
So then, like, what is the rebuilding then? You know what I mean? Like, we're just back here on the same team. Like, how do we improve
Yeah.
the bench, right? And I think this is
Yeah.
where, if I have to give the front office like some leeway, it's like that. Like, there's not that many like the pieces that the other teams would want out of the Raptors are the pieces that are fundamental to what the Raptors would need when they eventually try to win again. Which I think, by the way, they're very clearly trying to win. I mean, you don't play your starters 47 minutes without trying to win.
Yeah, I think having said the OG Fred thing, I think to get something of reasonable value in return, you probably will have to trade one of them, right? Well, I'm talking about Gary and OG, sorry,
Mm,
and of course Fred as well. So I think you're not going to make a great trade unless you give up somebody of value. We saw that with the DeMar trade and all that stuff. So
yeah.
so yes, there's going to be some parting of ways with players that we don't want to leave, that we want to retain, but that's just part of the game. But my question really is it are we going into because if we're going into a rebuild where we expect the next contending team to be in like 3 years, then in the summertime you have to talk about Pascal, because I think it might be Pascal who's like, well, I don't think I want to be part of the situation. We're sort of assuming that he's always going to want to play here, but he's 28, 29. He's going to be entering the prime of his career so far. He wants to play on a championship team. I don't think he would be interested in being part of a 3-year rebuild.
I mean, okay, a 3-year rebuild. Obviously, I think that might be a little bit hard to sell to any sort of active star, but at the same time, I do look at Pascal. I just don't see any of that history. Like even this season, right? I think it'd be very easy for Pascal, who's working really hard right now and kind of alone out there in a lot of these nights, where he could just say, and he's interviewed quite often by the press, and he can kind of like point fingers at his teammates or point fingers at anything else. He doesn't ever do that. He's in a very positive space. And yeah, I mean, I understand that like this is the recent trend for star players, is that like when things go bad, they kind of run. But I don't know. I maybe it's just, maybe I'm being a little naive here, but I really do think that Pascal is going to kind of stay committed to this program. But obviously, I think the program has to be committed to putting pieces around him too. And even if you, like, for example, like hypothetically, if OG were to be moved, you kind of go one of two directions, right? You can try to package OG and with some other pieces, and you roll it up into a secondary star, right? Which is essentially like what you really need to see with this team. Either someone steps up into that, either Fred returns back to where he was last season in the first half of the year, whether Scotty really accelerates his development and he is the clear-cut number 2, or the Raptors package OG with some picks and get a clear defined number 2 behind Pascal. Like that's ultimately the goal, I think, from the trade. If they go the other direction of a trade like that, which is just to sort of liquidate and get like future assets that are like 2025, 2027 draft picks, then that's stuff where it's like much less appealing, because you're essentially taking away your best defensive player, and you're asking Pascal to essentially do even more with even less.